we are going to get started. Thank you everyone for joining. We're very excited for today's update. I'm going to start now. All right, let me just move this chat out of the way. All right, so I'm going to start with the event guidelines. First, this video, you will not appear in the video. We will. Mute courtesy, that means your audio will be muted during this event. If you have questions, make sure to submit them in the questions in the Q&A section only. That's where we're going to be looking at the questions and answering them at the end. So make sure to put the questions there. Closed captioning, it is available. To turn it on, click on the live transcription icon at the bottom of your screen and just select the preference. All right, so we're going to start with introductions, which we're going to go around the room. I'm going to introduce you to each of the folks and ask them a question that they're not prepared for. Then we're going to follow that by a tech update and follow that up with a Q&A session. So I'll introduce myself first. My name is Rajiv Ahmed. I'm the CTPO here. I've been here since November of 2020, October of 2020. Very excited to be here. I'm running 2 organizer groups and a huge soccer fan. And my last event that I went to was, last meetup event I went to was a soccer game. So I'm going to ask Eugen to introduce yourself, Eugen, tell us where you're joining from and tell us what your last meetup event was.
Hi guys, I'm Eugen Meeson. I'm the Senior Director of Data at Meetup. I've been with Meetup for 2 years now, just about, and I'm joining from New Jersey. My last Meetup event was probably a Meetup Live that I was a guest speaker for, so hopefully I'm seeing the same faces here today.
All right, Eugen, we're excited to have you today. Next is Kristen. Kristen, same questions for you. Where are you joining in from? And tell us your last meetup event as well. And of course,
Hey everyone, my name is Kristen Shi. I'm a product manager here at Meetup, and I'm part of a team called the DPS team, which stands for Discovery, Personalization, and Search. I'm joining from Toronto, Ontario, and I think the last meetup I went to was in February. It was a meditation event, very quiet and relaxing.
That sounds like an awesome event. Thank you, Kristen. All right, and the last person we have with us is Brian. Brian, same questions, introduction, followed by where you're joining from and the last event that you went to.
Hey everyone, I am Brian Munn. I am the Senior Lifecycle Marketing Manager. So really looking at all of our emails, push, in-app messages to nudge users along and provide vital information to use Meetup. And I'm based here in Chicago. And last Meetup event, I think was photography, walk around the city and just take photos with a bunch of other photographers around the city.
Nice. I also know Brian is a big soccer fan as well. So, all right, on that note, everyone, we're going to get started. Thank you, everyone, for the wonderful introduction. We have an awesome team here, and they have some great updates to share. So again, I will just say, if you have questions, please make sure to put them at the Q&A. At the end of this session, we will make sure that we try our best to get through every single question. All right, I am going to pass it off to Kristen.
Thanks, Rajiv. So as mentioned before, I am a product manager here at Meetup. One of the products that we oversee is Search. And today I want to talk a bit about why Search is so important to our business as well as for our users. I'm also going to explain at a very high level how event search actually works. So how we rank and sort results on event search. And I'll also share a little preview of what you can potentially expect from us in the next year in terms of feature releases. Next slide. So search is very core for our users. It's one of the first ways that users actually discover content and become part of the Meetup ecosystem. It's one of the primary ways that a user can find events and groups outside of notifications or personalized suggestions. Organizers also rely very heavily on search to show their events to the right users, so that we're not just throwing them, random events here and there. Next slide. But why is search actually important to the product team? It's very important for us because it's one of the ways that we actually figure out what members care about other than what they RSVP to or what they join. For example, when users perform searches on our platform, we're able to see the locations they're searching from, what keywords they're using, and we can also see what events and groups they click on but do not RSVP to or join. Search is also really important because it's a way for us to identify members who are highly motivated to become part of our ecosystem. We know that new members who utilize search are 3 times more likely to RSVP. Another kind of interesting stat is if you're a frequent Meetup user, you'll probably have seen on our web platform, we have both event search and group search. Interestingly enough, event search gets about 4 times the amount of traffic as group search does. And so event search is a major driver for us in terms of registrations, RSVPs, group joins, and it's a major focus for the product team over the next year. Next. So some fun stats that I thought we could share. On Meetup, we get about 450 searches per minute. On event search, that works out to about 17.5 million searches per month across 1.4 million unique users. On search, we have an overall click-through rate of 21%. What that means is that for a given search, we have about a 21% chance that a user actually clicks something that shows up in search. We also like to track, month to month what the top 10 search queries are. And funnily enough, hiking has been the most popular search term on our platform for probably around 2 years now. So just kind of interesting. Next. These are also some of the most popular cities in terms of where we get the most search volume. New York City by far is our most popular city for searches, but you'll see that we have really major metropolitan areas all over the world. So next, don't be overwhelmed by this slide. Basically, I wanted to share a little bit about how search actually returns results, because I know this has been kind of a point of curiosity for many of our organizers. The overall gist of it is how Meetup returns results to users in search depends on 2 factors: whether or not the user is logged in as a member or they're browsing as a guest, and whether their search contains a keyword or no keyword. So what essentially happens is a user comes to Meetup, they input a location and then a keyword or no keyword. Search will then call a specific API endpoint depending on the type of query. And then the API call then relies on a data model or sometimes multiple data models to determine the relevance of an event or a group. How we determine relevance can depend on many factors like the distance from the user, how closely the keyword matches, the popularity of the event and user behavior, and then we score them. Meetup then sorts the results in order of relevance. Once the user has that final list of events or groups, filters can then be applied from the user's side. So for example, if I search a knitting group in Chicago, I can apply a filter from my side to say, hey, I only want to go to online events, and then filter out any in-person events. And then over time, the product and data teams will analyze search's performance through metrics like clicks, RSVPs and joins, as well as relevance scores. The table that you see on this slide basically indicates, depending on which one of the 4 categories you fall into, how we populate search results to you. So for example, if I am a guest, meaning I'm not logged in on Meetup, and I perform a search without a keyword, we use a data model called popular events nearby, which, as the name would suggest, basically just takes the location that you have used in search, and we populate events that have high rates of RSVP close to your area, and we sort them by order of distance. Conversely, if I'm logged in as a member and I utilize a keyword, Meetup will first attempt to match any events that have the keyword that you searched for in the event title and event description. Meetup will then identify, hey, let's say I search for the word hiking in Miami, something like that. Meetup will then identify, hey, hiking actually falls into a category called sports and fitness, and then will boost other events that are in that same category higher in search results. And then when those 2 options are exhausted, the search will then utilize popular events nearby to kind of fill out the rest of the search results. Now, you'll see that currently out of the 4 types of event searches that we have, only one of them is personalized, and that is for members who are not using a keyword. we use a data model called member event to help personalize our results. And Eugen will actually be talking more about that later in the presentation. One of the plans that we have over the next year is actually to personalize keyword searches performed specifically by members. Next. So besides personalizing keyword searches, I also want to share a couple of sort of themes that we have for the search product over the coming year. Next. So I would say the first one that we have is we want to better match results in search based on topics. As some of you may be aware, when you sign up for a Meetup account and go through onboarding, there is a portion of it where we will ask you, hey, what interests do you have? We think that those interests matter and should play a role in how we populate results to you. So one of the things we want to do is make topics more relevant in how we sort and reorder search results. We also want to encourage members to add and maintain their interests throughout their time on Meetup. So not just asking for your interests one time, but maybe a year from now, your interests change. We want to know what those interest changes might be. The third thing that we want to do is make it easier for organizers to actually add topics to their events and make topics more obvious to members on event pages. A second big theme for us is simplifying search. One of the biggest and kind of big bets that we're looking at is potentially consolidating event search and group search into one. This would be a pretty big architectural push from our end, but we think it would make it a lot easier for our users to potentially find what they're looking for instead of asking them to toggle back and forth between two kinds of searches. And we also want to make a couple of changes to the user interface in terms of making it easier and sort of reducing the amount of clutter that is on search on web and apps, and also improving our filters to be more accurate. The last theme that we have is that we want to provide new recommendations for our members through early signal capture and through machine learning. So one of the things that we want to do is, for example, utilize what we learn about members during onboarding to send them better notifications, as well as to send them more accurate and more relevant recommendations on the homepage. We also want to adjust our data models based on why members join Meetup. One of the things that we learned about our members over the past year was that many of them come to Meetup, for example, for the explicit purpose of making friends. Sometimes they come to, do a certain hobby, like to play soccer or to find a walking group. We think that we should provide recommendations that are actually tailored to those reasons instead of just based on popularity in your location. The last one, which utilizes machine learning, is we're interested in potentially applying natural language processing to parse event descriptions for tags and topics. That will in turn make it easier for users to find what they're looking for through search. And the really great thing about this is that it requires less of a push on the organizer side to make their events and groups more relevant. It's really something passive that would kind of happen in the background. So these are some of the features that we have coming up. Hopefully everyone here is as excited about them as I am. With that being said, I will pass it off to Eugen.
Thanks, Kristen. The next few slides, I'm going to elaborate in more detail the data science and machine learning models that Kristen alluded to earlier in her slides. These are the models that build connections from our members to their groups or their groups' events. Next slide. So in order to build matches between our members and groups / events, we have several key attributes that we use. For the members, who is our demand in our flywheel, depicted here is a soccer or football enthusiast, maybe in a new neighborhood, looking to play a match. We know some attributes about this member. So we know your location. If you've added interest to your profile during onboarding, or if you're adding interest within the platform, we'll also utilize this data, and depending on how many interests you add. We also have other clear signals, such as the groups you have joined and your RSVP history to events from those groups. For RSVPs, if you're joining online versus in real life, we'll be able to also match on sort of your tendency of which type of events you like. And as you register on the platform, we have that date. So we have your tenureship. So how long have you been with Meetup? And we can see if you're a brand new or long tenured member on the platform. And of course, we keep track of activities of dates when you've used the platform. On the flip side, we have our groups, which create the event supply. So for that example of the soccer football enthusiasts, they're looking for a soccer football group that they'd like to join. We use keywords found in the group's name or title, the description that the organizer crafted, the topics that were selected for that group that roll up into an internal taxonomy. Location, of course, is key. And then on top of that, we know the age of the group. So, how long has that group been around? We also know the members that have joined that group and all the events that you've created. Organizers also have the ability to add topics to their events and will leverage that data when it's available. And for the events, we know the timing of the event scheduled in the future and if those events are recurring. All those items become features as well as features for our filters for our internal data science models. Next slide. So our data science and machine learning track at Meetup has 7 personalized and similarity models to help match between the supply and demand of our guests and members to organizers, groups, and events. And additionally, Meetup uses marketing models that come from the marketing team set of tools. Our models include one, popularity models. These are not personalized, and it just showcases the most popular events and most popular groups nearby to your location. The next set of models we have are similarity models. And while it sounds like we are recommending similar events to the one you're interested in, we're actually looking at how similar the profiles of members look to that event or group to another one. And lastly, we have our personalized models that suggest groups and events, one model specifically designed to support new groups, and a more broad model to recommend topics and categories to members. I think the personalized models are the most interesting, and so those are the ones I'll walk you through in more detail today. Next slide. The first of our 2 personalized models that you heard from Kristen earlier is called Member Group or Member Events Model. And it's a dual service model as it powers both personalized group recommendations and also suggests relevant events to members. You can find this model in its very own email template called Suggested Events Email, which is delivered weekly on Mondays. Also, the recommendations are found on the logged in members homepage, and if you're doing a logged in search without a keyword. Some fun stats about this model is that it powers the email, and that email has about 10 million monthly sends. And within that email product, we match 3.1 million members to specific events. Next slide. For our organizers that are creating new groups, we leverage a data model called New Group Announcement, also known as NGA. And this model recommends new and approved meetup groups in a member's area. It's used in our NGA email push product. And then we also use it on specific pages and screens like search. If a new group has an upcoming event, on the right side, you'll see the screenshot. You'll also be able to RSVP to the event in the email that you get. So we're driving also joins to groups as well as RSVPs. Most recently, we are sending out a new product called Group Reannouncements, which is based off of the same template, new group announcement. We've isolated smaller groups that need maybe a second or third promotion to grow their group membership. And we find that helping our new organizers is key to their success. Next slide. So this is our upcoming somewhat roadmap on how we want to improve matching. We want to make our models smarter and more robust. So we're planning on the following improvements for Q2. First, we'll plan to start off with some updates to who gets NGA emails and push notifications. We realize that folks don't have an infinite amount of time to join so many new groups. And so after some research, we found the opportunity to expand our user base of those that receive this notification, especially from our newly registered members. Secondly, we want to update the algorithm itself and use some of the signals that we haven't leveraged in the past, such as search history. As you heard, many new users use our search for discovery. And if we can match you to a better group or event with this data, we want to test that. So that takes us into split testing the model once we add these new feature sets, and we'd like to try it out on smaller surfaces like the NGA email product. And if it does really well, we will expand it to other models and other placements across the platform, even back into search. I'll now hand it over to Brian, who will be providing an update on notifications.
Thank you. Yeah, so diving into notifications, if you go into the next slide, gonna go through a little, I want to take a step back on notifications, and we're gonna go on a journey a little bit. So you go to the next slide. So really when I think about notifications, I think about communication, and really the history of our communication can be traced back to really the origin of speech itself. So like we as humans, we've always used technology when we communicate, whether it was symbols and cave paintings, communicating through body language, all the way to the invention of the printing press, to telecommunications and the internet. And really now there's all these new channels like email marketing and push and in-app communications. And really, I guess the point that I'm trying to say is that the channels have changed and evolved through the years, but one thing's really remained constant, and it's that singular goal to engage with the right audience in the right channel to drive that highest impact and inspire that desired action. So really, how's that look in the Meetup ecosystem? If you go to the next slide, you can really see that every touch point that is sent out fits into the lifecycle flow and serves to enhance this digital infrastructure that powers community building that our organizers are driving all across the world. So whether it's notifications that are helping onboard members and welcome them in the meetup and help them find that first event that they want to go to, or that second, or that third, or that fourth, or really find that group that is really going to serve that goal of why they're joining Meetup in the first place, or whether it's an organizer that is new to Meetup and new to starting their group, and we're providing the resources to help them grow that group, to help them reach the right members and figure out how they can continue creating these great events for our members to find on our platform through search, like both Kristen and Eugen were talking about. So if you go to the next slide, we can really kind of dive into some stats to just show you how large of an ecosystem our notifications are. So we send 23 million notifications a day and almost 700 million sends per month to an audience of about 15.8 million people. And this is a lot of notifications, and it takes a really robust ecosystem and setup to send out all these notifications and ensure it gets to the right spot at the right time to the right person. And I'm proud to say that our overall deliverability for our notifications is 99.4%, which is above industry benchmarks. And we're always continually trying to improve this number because we know how vital these communications are to our members and to our organizers. So if you go to the next slide, we can kind of dive into kind of the background of how notifications are triggered on our platform. So we kind of have two routes to trigger notifications based on what the notification is. And it's all really centered around real-time data. So the data is essential to ensure that we're sending the right info to the right user in the right language and to the right goal of what the notification is trying to do. And really that goes into personalization. So each touch point to the member provides that unique value to them. We don't want to message someone about one group that they're not, that they have no interest in, and it provides no value to them. And then it needs to ensure that it's scalable so that the data is accurate and the notification triggers at the moment it needs to, so that someone is finding out about an event with time to go to that event so they don't miss it. And so there's two routes we do this. One is the meetup member interacts with the product and that triggers an API call. An example of this is an organizer announcing an event, and that triggers an API call to the members of that group to announce that event to them. Another instance of this could be a organizer creating that first group, and then that triggers an API call that announces that group then. And then the other route is an attribute might change for your profile on Meetup, or you do an action that triggers a profile update. So an example of this is you join a new group and then that routes to our notification system. It notices that there's a change in an attribute or an event, and that triggers a send or allows us to segment a message differently. So an example of this is if you're a member and you become an organizer, that updates your user profile. So then we're sending you resources on how to set up that first event or grow your group on social media and really provide this helpful material so that you can really prosper and deliver that value that to you of growing that group that you set out on that mission to do. So if you go to the next slide, I can kind of dive into kind of where we're going with notifications and some exciting features that we've already launched. So like I mentioned a few slides back, we send a lot of notifications. So we're really looking at how can we enhance the notifications we're sending already so that we're not adding more notifications into your inbox. And really the viewpoint that we're looking at this is that every touch point that we send is a blank canvas that allows us to add more personalization so that we can add more value to that email that you're already receiving. And if you go to the next slide, I'll show you kind of this in action. So we're pulling in events from groups that our members are already in and really highlighting your events to allow our members to re-engage and find those events for your group and create these new placements to feature your groups and feature your events. We're highlighting milestone achievements for our members and organizers. So if you're 2 RCPs away from your 50th event, we're letting you know and showing your progress so it can urge you to take that action and find that next event. And then we're also highlighting resources that are specific to you as organizers. In a series of all these different touch points that we're sending, we're highlighting blog articles and links to different FAQ pages really that are unique to you. So if you have an online event that's coming up, we'll provide you resources to make sure that online event is safe for you. And also with product marketing, if there's new features that are launching and we think that it'll provide value to you, we're letting you know in these different touch points, just so we're really providing that value to you and making sure that you're fully aware of all the different offerings that are on Meetup for you. And I think that's the last slide on notifications, so I'll pass it over to Rajiv.
All right, I want to first say thank you to Kristen, Eugen, and Brian. I think great job giving everyone. Whew, excuse me. All right, 1 second. All right, thank you to you all. I think understanding what search does for members and organizers and the data science levers that help actually amplify all these things to the triggers that we all have that helps with notifications and getting people back onto our platform. I think you all gave a great overview. So thank you to you all. We're going to go over just a few more things and then we'll jump into the Q&A. So first thing is we want to hear from you. So sign up and be a participant in our next user feedback session. So if you take that link, you'll be able to give us feedback and join our next session for feedback. So I'll keep this up for 10 more seconds in case anybody wants it. And I think we'll also put it into our chat. We do want to hear from you if you want to stay up to date and want to hear what we're up to. You could join us at our Meetup blog at meetup.com/blog/meetup product release notes. You can always come there to see what we're up to and what we're shipping towards and upcoming features. And lastly, we do have a community space on Discord. So join the organizer Discord community. You can use the QPR code. You can scan it through your phone there, and you have a direct link that is available as well. So it is a very thriving community there. So I do advise you to join. The organizers help each other out. There's a lot of good feedback that we also get and we incorporate into our product development, as well as a lot of surveys that we asked there as well. So perfect place for organizers to get in touch with other organizers and get feedback to us early. All right. And the last one is that we do have our podcast, Keep Connected. Our CEO, David Siegel, brings many guests on and talks on very appealing categories and conversations. So definitely check that out. You can scan the code here. If you're interested, I know I listen to that all the time. It's a wonderful podcast that you all should join. All right, we're going to now shift over into our Q&A part. Hang tight, everyone. I'm just going to pull up the questions so we can start taking that on. All right. All right, the first question. Oh, this is a nice question. Kristen, while I pull up all the questions, the first one is for you. In the next quarter, this is an opinion question. Great. Kristen, for next quarter, what's the thing that we're doing that's the biggest around search that you're excited about?
Ooh, I think personalizing search is going to be very exciting for keyword searches. It's not something we've ever done before. It's very experimental. I think the other one I'm really excited to try is using machine learning, like natural language processing on event descriptions, also new territory for us. Hard to say if it's going to be a success, but sometimes you have to test just to see if it works. So yeah.
Great. All right, I'll go to the next question, which is from Anonymous. Rajiv, can you update us on the progress towards providing Canadian organizers with the same feature set as US organizers? This is relating to pledge, full functioning member dues, etc. So that's a great question. We are looking at expanding those different things. One of the providers that we're working with is Stripe, and in Q2, we've engaged in some activities to see how we can expand some of our offerings into those places. This is whether it's for allowing more payment systems, whether it's ticketing, whether it's event dues and or pledge. We're looking at how we can bring all of those things over the next quarters to be able to expand them globally, just not in the US, where sometimes they're limited. Great question. We are working on that. Some things will be coming in immediately in Q2 and some things likely a little bit later, but they're in our roadmap. Kristen, another one for you. This is from Anonymous. Does group size affect rankings in search? Will it in the future, and how?
The answer is kind of. It doesn't affect it in terms of like, we don't provide a score based on the group size. However, we do try to boost new groups to help support new organizers. So if a group is very young in terms of its tenure and is under a certain threshold of members, we do try to show it a little bit higher in search results. But once it has met that threshold, it kind of goes back into the pile with all the other groups.
Perfect. All right. I think another question from Renzo was that can you get an update on the progress towards event fee payments beyond PayPal, specifically Stripe? So again, similar to the last one, we are looking at some Stripe integrations in Q2. We're planning on doing a few spikes just to see how those things turn out to be. And if it ends up being really good, we want to be able to bring that out to market as soon as we can. All right. Oh, Eugen, this is a good question for you because I'd like to know if you know it too. How much time does it take our APIs to return from the search results? Whew.
Oh, I actually know this if you don't know.
Oh, I don't know
Eugen.
the answer, but I'm going to say the answer is fast.
It is.
And I hope that's suffices. Kristen, go ahead.
I believe it's 96.9 milliseconds on event search.
Yep, there you go. And to add to what Kristen adds, for all our APIs, we have an SLA of 200 milliseconds. So anytime they start being further out, we identify those as performance issues and we fine tune them. But Kristen is absolutely right. We try to get that back within a 50 to 100 millisecond time. And we're also expanding on our multi-region infrastructure efforts to be able to give from global searches, so they can basically hit our infrastructure faster and get performance on those faster down the road as well, which means that 5,200 milliseconds isn't good enough. We want to be faster, and we're striving to do that as well. Great question. I love the technical ones. All right. Joe asked a question: does a keyword search for hiking also find results for variations like hikes, hike, etc.?
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say the words and the phrases are parsed, so the simplest forms of the words get the most relevant searches. There is some form of like tokenization that happens, and so it can search all three variations.
All right. Great question. All right, I'm going to jump to one more for you, Kristen. Wow, Kristen, you're getting a lot of questions. This one is: in event and group search, is event group search responsive to searches using different languages? French using French, words, vocabulary.
Yes. We show most of our examples in English because that's where the majority of our event supply is, but yes, responsive to different languages.
Yep. And the one thing I'll add to what Kristen said is we know that that is always evolving and always can be better. So we always look at how we can take translations and other things into play in order to make this a continuous improvement. Thank you, Kristen. All right. All right. This one is: as an organizer, I use catch titles like Mermaid Magic for a photo shoot event with synchronized swim team wearing mermaid takes. It sounds like this is wrong. So how can I better optimize my description? So I guess the question that I'm extracting from here is, what would be some recommendations that help search results on Meetup itself improve in identifying what keywords to utilize in that?
Yeah, I think based on that question, I would definitely include something like photo shoot in the title and in the description. Even if the title itself is quite catchy, I think it'll be rare for the users themselves to be searching for like the word mermaid. And also when you're creating the event in the event scheduler, I would include like photography, photo shoot, that type of thing in the event topics.
Great. All right, Kristen, I'm going to stay with you. This is from Ning. She said, would there be a plan to invite organizers to participate as beta testers for future enhancements of search and match algorithm changes?
I would love that. I would love to be able to work more with organizers, especially I think organizers know their own members better than we do and know what they're likely to search for. So if organizers are interested, like I would definitely be interested.
Yeah, and this is a great question, because in the past, when we expanded neighborhoods and some other areas, we actually shared it with a few organizers as well to get some feedback. So we'll make a note of this to definitely get you involved. All right, Brian, this question I'm going to ask you. Bill said that he understands event announcements go out to members who are active in the past 3 months. Is that true? How does that help organizers to hold events? Who would come if they don't get notifications?
So yeah, we take a lot of different factors in place to decide if to send an event announcement. And I think what you're leaning towards is the one that, like, if someone isn't active, but we define active by a lot of different ways. So like if they go onto the platform, they RSVP to an event, but also if they're opening an email. So they haven't been opening an email from us or going on the site for multiple months at a time, then we look at different strategies to re-engage them. So we have all of these different re-engagement flows that go up to a year of inactivity. So, and we're pulling in, we're surfacing events in those re-engagement campaigns as well, like I showed on that one slide where we're pulling in more personalizations. So we're really servicing your events in different places. We're just trying different strategies at the point where they haven't been engaging with us for months at a time. And really the key for this is that we're protecting the domain, email domain, and the deliverability, so that those members who are engaging, who are active in your group, continue getting those emails, and it's delivered at the top of their inbox, and that we're delivering those, like those people are active and finding your events.
All right. The next question is, I can take this one. But you know what? I'll pass it to you, Kristen. What does no keyword search mean?
So no keyword search is what happens when you input a location and you just hit search. You haven't searched for like a specific keyword. Because Meetup doesn't know what you're looking for, it will populate events based on popularity as a result. But that's basically what it is.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, we're down to the last 3 minutes. So, and we have 4 questions. So timing wise, we're in good shape. So the next question was for me: when a member RSVPs, the initial response from Meetup to the member could emphasize more strongly that the organizer and others who have RSVP'd are counting on their attendance in order to have successful meetings. What are your thoughts about this? I agree. So I'm trying to just read through this one more time. So in order to ensure that we get the most folks coming back to the events, Brian, maybe you can assist me in some of the details. But we know once an organizer gets RSVPs, there's active steps we do to ensure that prior to that event, that we're giving proper reminders and nudges along the way so that they do end up showing up. We know that organizing an event takes a lot of time, planning. If you're picking a venue, preparation for that. And as folks RSVPs, our intention is to make sure that, you know, we give them all the tools that allows them to actually show up to the event. But Brian, maybe you could talk through what are some of these things that help nudge that from our side.
Yeah, I think this is really a future iteration that we're working on enhancing as well, since this past quarter we launched the organizer help module that's personalized at the top of event reminders for the hosts of the event, which provides those resources for the event. That just launched like 2 weeks ago. And now this next quarter and the quarters beyond, we're looking at how can we flip that on the member side and provide helpful resources to them in those event reminders. And I think that's a perfect place for us to nudge them and remind them of that they RSVP'd to this event, and if that changes, then they'll let the organizer know and that they're counting on them to attend.
Thank you, Brian. All right. All right. Last 2 questions, because I know we're down to a minute. Kristen, why does group search have 4x less than event search?
I think it could be a couple of reasons. The first one, I think, is that when people come to Meetup, they're looking for events. They're looking for something to go to. Joining the group is just the entry point into going into an event. So what's more likely to happen is people search for an event, realize I have to join the group to go to the event, and then join. An interesting stat is actually more people join groups from event search than they do from group search. The second reason is probably just because of how we've laid out search. When you actually go to meetup.com and go to find, it defaults you to event search. So I think these 2 are probably why it's so much higher.
Okay. All right, Kristen, I promise one more question, and the last one is around search, so you get one more. I'm going to read through this fast. This was the last one. Speaking of tenure, I do like to see how long a group has been around. In order to find a date of a group that the group was founded, I need to go to the message boards, but some groups don't have such a page. How can I find out, you know, why isn't it more prominent is the question, and why isn't the date found given on the group's main page, if it can be?
Yeah, thanks for the feedback. I've been working at Meetup for about 6 months now, so that feature may have been removed before I started, but it's good to know that it's in demand and can definitely add it to the backlog if it's of interest for our organizers.
Yeah, thank you for that great feedback. All right, everyone, I know we're a minute over. I appreciate everyone joining in. I've definitely learned a lot. And again, thank you to Eugen, Brian, and Kristen for participating and explaining all the details, and for everyone that joined in today. I look forward to our next update. All right, have a great one, everyone.